"You don't belong here." Those 4 words from her own father shattered everything Victoria Sterling thought she knew about success. At 28, she'd built a tech empire from her wheelchair, but the night she defended the man she loved in front of her board, she realized money couldn't buy the one thing she'd been starving for: family. This is the story of how a chance encounter at an airport with a grieving widower and his daughter saved a woman who had everything except a reason to live. Before we begin, please subscribe and hit that notification bell, because this story will take you on an emotional journey you won't want to miss. And comment below with your city or country so I can see how far this story travels around the world. Trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end. Ms. Sterling, your father is on line 1. He says it's urgent. Victoria Sterling declined the call without looking up. 3rd time in an hour. She knew what he wanted. Another lecture about the Chicago deal. Another reminder that $42 million in quarterly revenue wasn't enough. Another conversation where she'd hear the disappointment in his voice that she'd never quite measure up. The phone buzzed again immediately. A text this time. "Dad. Answer your phone. The board is asking questions." She silenced it and shoved it into her bag. Denver Airport, Gate C-47. Flight delayed indefinitely. The terminal buzzed with the usual chaos: crying babies, businessmen shouting into phones. Teenagers sprawled across seats like they owned the world. Victoria sat apart from it all, her wheelchair positioned near the floor-to-ceiling windows where she could watch planes take off into the darkening sky. Nobody looked at her. Not really. They looked at the chair, made their assumptions, then looked away. She'd stopped caring years ago. Stopped caring about a lot of things, actually. Her laptop sat open on her lap, but the quarterly projections blurred together. Numbers that used to excite her now felt like chains. Sterling Technologies. Her creation. Her prison. "Excuse me." Victoria didn't look up. People always wanted something. Directions, the time to feel better about themselves by offering help she didn't need. "Excuse me, are you a princess?" That made her look up. A little black girl with cornrow braids and light-up sneakers stood 2 feet away, head tilted, studying Victoria with the intensity of a scientist examining a specimen. She couldn't have been more than 6, wearing a purple jacket with a unicorn patch and clutching a worn coloring book. "What?" Victoria's corporate smile activated automatically, the one she used for difficult clients. "Are you a princess? You're sitting on a throne all by yourself, like you're waiting for someone to rescue you?" The words hit like ice water. Victoria's smile faltered. "This isn't a throne, sweetheart. It's a wheelchair. It helps me get around." "But why are you sitting all alone? Where's your family?" The question cut deeper than the child intended. Victoria felt something twist in her chest, something she'd been very good at ignoring for a very long time. "I don't have—" Victoria started, then stopped. What was she supposed to say to a kid that she'd traded family for stock options? That success had cost her everyone who'd ever mattered? Emma Marie Rodriguez. A man appeared, slightly out of breath. Panic written across his face. Tall Latino, early 30s, wearing work boots and a flannel shirt stained with what looked like paint. His hands were rough, calloused, nothing like the soft handshakes of her board members. He scooped up the little girl. "I'm so sorry. She ran off while I was in the bathroom. Emma, what did we talk about? You can't just bother people." "I'm not bothering her, Daddy. I'm asking why she's all alone. That's sad." Victoria felt her face flush with anger and embarrassment. "We're done here." She started to turn her wheelchair away, but the man stepped into her path. "Look, I'm really sorry. She's 6 and she has no filter. We've had a rough day and—" "Then maybe you should keep better track of your daughter instead of letting her harass strangers." The words came out sharper than Victoria intended, edged with the frustration of her father's calls, the delayed flight, the loneliness the kid had just thrown in her face. The man's expression hardened. Harass. She asked you a question. She's a child. A child you're clearly not supervising. Emma, go sit down. Now. His voice had gone cold. The little girl's eyes welled up with tears as she backed away. And you, he turned back to Victoria. Maybe if you weren't so busy being miserable, a kid being friendly wouldn't feel like an attack. He walked away before Victoria could respond, guiding his daughter back to a cluster of seats across the gate area. Emma kept looking back at Victoria, confusion and hurt on her small face. Victoria sat there, hands shaking slightly. She never lost her temper. Never. She'd negotiated million-dollar deals with venture capitalists who tried to lowball her faced-down board members who thought a woman in a wheelchair couldn't run a tech company, fired executives twice her age without breaking a sweat. But a random construction worker and his kid had just cracked her composure in 30 seconds. Her phone buzzed. Another call from her father. She answered this time, if only to channel her anger somewhere. What? Victoria, where are you? I've been calling for an hour. Denver Airport. My flight's delayed. What do you want, Dad? The Chicago presentation. Please tell me you're prepared. The investors are already nervous about expanding into the Midwest. And if you fumble this, I won't fumble it, I never fumble. Your numbers this quarter were down 3%. We're still $42 million in revenue. Most companies would kill for that. Most companies aren't Sterling Technologies. Most companies weren't built by my investment. You're slipping, Victoria. I can feel it. You're distracted. She wanted to scream. Instead, she took a breath, using the technique her therapist had taught her before she'd fired the therapist for suggesting she worked too much. I'm fine. The presentation is solid. The Chicago expansion will work. It better. The board is already questioning whether you're the right person to lead this phase. They think you're too young, too what, say it. Silence on the other end. They both knew what the board whispered behind closed doors. Too disabled, too emotional, too much of a liability. Just don't mess this up. Her father hung up. Victoria stared at her phone, feeling the familiar emptiness settling over her like fog. This was her life. Proving herself to people who'd never fully believe in her. Building an empire that left her sitting alone in airports, taking calls from a father who saw her as a stock portfolio instead of a daughter. Attention passengers on Flight 2847 to Chicago O'Hare. We apologize for the continued delay. We're now expecting departure at 9:45 p.m., approximately 3 hours from now. 3 more hours in this terminal. 3 more hours of her father's calls, her assistant's emails, the weight of a company pressing down on her shoulders. Victoria pulled out her laptop, determined to work. But her eyes kept drifting across the gate area to where the man sat with his daughter. Emma was coloring, her earlier tears dried. The man had his arm around her, talking quietly. Even from this distance, Victoria could see the love there, the gentle way he wiped his daughter's face, the patience as she showed him her drawing. When was the last time someone had touched Victoria like that? Not a handshake, not a physical therapist, but genuine affection. She couldn't remember. Her phone buzzed with a text from her assistant. Jennifer, your father wants the Q4 projections revised before the presentation. He thinks the accessibility retrofit budget is too high. Of course he did. The one part of the Chicago project Victoria actually cared about, making the new headquarters truly accessible, not just ADA compliant, but actually designed for people with disabilities, and her father wanted it cut. She typed back, "The accessibility budget stays. Non-negotiable. Jennifer, he won't like that. Victoria, he doesn't like anything I do." What else is new? Victoria closed her laptop and closed her eyes, suddenly exhausted. 28 years old, and she felt ancient. Built a company, changed. An industry, made the Forbes 30, under 30 list, and for what? To sit alone in an airport, while a 6-year-old asked the one question no one else dared to. Why are you alone? Excuse me. Victoria's eyes snapped open. The man from earlier stood in front of her, his daughter hiding slightly behind his leg. "What do you want?" Victoria's voice came out defensive. "Emma has something to say to you." The little girl stepped forward, holding out a piece of paper torn from her coloring book. On it was a drawing of a woman in a wheelchair wearing a crown. The woman was smiling, surrounded by hearts and stars, and what looked like purple unicorns. "I'm sorry I made you sad," Emma said in a small voice. "Daddy says I shouldn't ask people why they're alone, because maybe they're alone because people aren't nice to them, and that makes them not want to be around people anymore. So I drew you a picture to say sorry. That's you. You're a princess and you're beautiful." Victoria stared at the drawing, something hot and unfamiliar burning behind her eyes. No one had drawn her a picture since elementary school. No one had called her beautiful in years. People called her brilliant, intimidating, successful, but never beautiful. "You didn't have to do this," Victoria managed. "I know, but I wanted to. Because even if you were mean to me, I was mean first by making you feel bad about being alone. Daddy says 2 wrongs don't make a right, so I'm making it right." The man, what was his name, Rodriguez, the little girl had said, cleared his throat. "I owe you an apology too. I shouldn't have said you were miserable. I don't know. You don't know what you're dealing with. Emma's learning about kindness, and I just showed her the opposite. I'm sorry." Victoria took the drawing with trembling hands. "I'm the one who should apologize. You were right." She asked a simple question and I bit her head off. "I've had a bad day, but that's not an excuse." "We've all had bad days." Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. "Especially lately." Emma tugged on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, can I ask her something?" "Emma, we apologized. Let's leave the lady alone now." "But Daddy, she looks so sad. And Abuela always says when someone's sad you should try to make them smile." Victoria surprised herself by saying, "What do you want to ask?" Emma's face lit up. "Do you want to sit with us? We have goldfish crackers, and I have my coloring book, and Daddy brought his iPad with movies, and we're going to be here forever and ever, and you shouldn't be alone when you're sad." "Emma Ms." Rodriguez paused. "I don't even know your name." "Victoria. Victoria Sterling." Something flickered across Rodriguez's face. Recognition. Here it comes, Victoria thought. The switch from regular person to CEO worship. But Rodriguez just said, "I'm Daniel. Daniel Rodriguez. And this is Emma, who apparently thinks she's the world's youngest therapist." "I'm not a therapist, Daddy. I'm a friend maker. There's a difference." Victoria felt the corner of her mouth twitch, almost a smile. When was the last time she'd genuinely smiled? "I don't want to intrude," Victoria said, but even as the words came out, she realized how much she wanted to say yes. How desperate she was for any human connection that didn't involve quarterly reports or board meetings. "You're not intruding if we invited you," Emma said with the irrefutable logic of children. "Please, I promise I won't ask sad questions anymore. We can talk about happy things like unicorns and cookies and how planes fly." Daniel met Victoria's eyes. Fair warning, Emma Talks Nonstop has strong opinions about everything from pizza toppings to which superhero would win in a fight, and will probably try to make you color with her. If that sounds like torture, now's your chance to escape. And if it doesn't sound like torture, then grab your stuff and come sit with us. We're at Gate C49, right next door. Victoria looked at her laptop at her phone, with its 17 unread emails at the empire she'd built that felt more like a cage every day. Then she looked at Emma's hopeful face at the drawing of a princess in a wheelchair surrounded by love. "Okay," Emma cheered, and grabbed Victoria's hand before anyone could change their minds. "Come on, I'll show you my whole coloring book. I have princesses and unicorns and dinosaurs because dinosaurs are cool too, not just for boys." Daniel gathered Victoria's laptop bag without asking, the gesture, so natural it didn't feel like pity, just one human helping another. They made their way to Gate C49. Emma chattering the entire time about everything and nothing. The new gate area was less crowded. Daniel had claimed a corner with several seats, a worn backpack, and a duffel bag that had seen better days. The contrast between his belongings and Victoria's designer luggage was stark. Emma immediately spread her coloring book across 3 seats. "This is my art studio. You can share it if you want." Victoria positioned her wheelchair near the seats. Daniel settled beside her, pulling out a bag of goldfish crackers. "Snack," he offered. "I'm fine." That's what people say when they're not fine. He shook the bag. "Come on. When's the last time you ate real food?" Victoria couldn't remember. "Breakfast, maybe." "This morning, I think." "You think. Great. Emma, we've got another person who forgets to eat." "That's very bad for you," Emma said seriously, handing Victoria a handful of crackers. "Your body needs fuel like a car needs gas. That's what Abuela always says." Victoria accepted the crackers, feeling absurd. She'd had dinner with senators, lunch with tech billionaires, champagne with venture capitalists. And here she was, eating goldfish crackers from a bag with a construction worker and his daughter. It felt more real than anything she'd done in months. "So Victoria Sterling," Daniel said, pulling out his phone. "I have to ask, are you the Victoria Sterling Technologies? Here it comes. The change, the worship, or the resentment?" "Yes." Daniel showed her his phone. A Forbes article with her picture. Tech's young disruptor. How Victoria Sterling built a $200 million company before 30. "I knew you looked familiar." "Emma, you picked a literal CEO to interrogate." Emma looked confused. "What's a CEO?" "It means she's the boss of a big company, like really big." Emma processed this, then shrugged. "Okay. Do you like unicorns?" Victoria laughed. Actually laughed. "I don't think anyone's ever asked me that." "Well, do you?" "I don't know. I've never really thought about it." Emma's eyes went wide. "You've never thought about unicorns? That's so sad. Unicorns are magical and beautiful, and they can fly and they poop rainbows." "I don't think they poop rainbows, baby," Daniel said, trying not to smile. "In my world they do." Emma turned back to Victoria. "What's your favorite color? I need to know for important reasons." "Blue. Dark blue. Like ocean blue or sad blue." The question stopped Victoria cold. How did this child see right through her ocean blue? Victoria said quietly. Emma nodded and started coloring with intense concentration. Daniel leaned back, studying Victoria with an expression she couldn't quite read. "So what brings a tech CEO to Denver Airport on a Wednesday night?" "Chicago meeting tomorrow. Expansion plans." "You?" "Moving to Chicago. New job. New start." "Running from something or toward something?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "Both." "Neither. It's complicated." "Everything's complicated." "Done." Emma thrust her coloring book at Victoria. She'd drawn another princess, this one in an ocean blue dress sitting in a wheelchair. But this princess wasn't alone. She was surrounded by people, stick figures holding hands in a circle around her. "See? You don't have to be alone. You just have to let people in." Victoria stared at the drawing, feeling that burning sensation behind her eyes again. "Emma, this is..." "True," the little girl interrupted. "It's true. You're alone because you think you have to be, but you don't." "Emma, that's enough," Daniel said gently. "Not everyone wants a 6-year-old psychoanalyzing them." "It's okay," Victoria said. "She's right." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Really? Really? I've spent 8 years building a company and 0 years building a life. I've got money, success, respect, everything I thought I wanted. And I'm the loneliest person I know." The admission hung in the air between them. Victoria couldn't believe she'd said it out loud. She didn't do vulnerability, didn't do confessions, didn't let strangers see behind the carefully constructed walls. but something about this little girl and her father made the walls feel pointless. "My wife died 8 months ago," Daniel said quietly. "Car accident. She was dropping Emma off at school and a drunk driver ran a red light. She died on impact. Emma was already inside the school, safe. Maria saved her by getting her out of the car first." Victoria's breath caught. "Daniel, I'm so—" "Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't bring her back." His voice cracked. "I stayed in Phoenix as long as I could, but everything there reminded me of her. The house we bought together. The grocery store where she'd run into friends. The school where I dropped Emma off every day at the exact spot where Maria—" He stopped, jaw working. "I couldn't breathe. So I'm running to Chicago, where my wife never was. Where maybe I can figure out how to be a dad without falling apart every time I see a blue Honda." Emma climbed into her father's lap, wrapping her small arms around his neck. "It's okay, Daddy. Mommy's still with us. She's in my heart. See?" She patted her chest. "I can feel her." Daniel held his daughter close, and Victoria saw tears slip down his cheeks that he didn't bother to hide. This was real. This was human connection, messy and painful and beautiful. Everything her corner office wasn't. "I lost my mother when I was 12, Victoria heard herself say. "Cancer. Fast and brutal. One day she was fine, 6 months later she was gone. My father didn't know how to handle it. Didn't know how to handle me. So he threw himself into work and I learned to do the same. By the time I was 18, I'd forgotten how to feel anything that wasn't ambition. Built a company because building things was easier than building relationships. And now I'm 28, successful as hell, and I can't remember the last time anyone touched me with affection. The last time someone drew me a picture. The last time I felt like a person instead of a portfolio." Emma climbed out of Daniel's lap and into Victoria's, wrapping her arms around Victoria's neck with fierce intensity. "I'm touching you with affection right now. And I drew you 2 pictures. So now you have those things again." Victoria's arms came up automatically to hold the child, and something inside her chest cracked wide open. She was crying. When was the last time she'd cried? Years. Maybe not since her mother's funeral. "Thank you," Victoria whispered into Emma's hair. "You're welcome. You're my friend now. Friends take care of each other." Daniel pulled out napkins from somewhere, handing them to Victoria. "Sorry. Emma has this effect on people. She's got her mother's heart. Sees people who are hurting and can't walk away." Victoria wiped her eyes, embarrassed and relieved at the same time. "I don't usually fall apart in airports." "We don't usually make people fall apart in airports. We're all having firsts tonight." Emma wriggled out of Victoria's arms and grabbed her coloring book. "Okay, now that we're all friends and we all cried, we should do something fun. Victoria, do you know how to color?" "It's been a while." "That's okay, I'll teach you. Rule number 1, there are no rules. If you want the sky to be purple, make it purple. If you want grass to be pink, make it pink. Coloring is about making the world the way you want it to be." Victoria accepted the crayons Emma thrust at her. "I like that philosophy." "It's a good one," Daniel said. "Wish the real world worked that way." "Maybe it does," Victoria said, picking up a blue crayon. "Maybe we just forget we're allowed to color outside the lines." They colored in companionable silence for a while. Emma narrated every choice. "This unicorn needs a purple mane because regular white is boring." Daniel added his own stick figures to Emma's drawings. "This is us. See, we're a team now." And Victoria felt her shoulders relax for the first time in months. Her phone buzzed. Her father again. She silenced it without looking. "Important call," Daniel asked. "My father, wanting to know if I've memorized my presentation for tomorrow, if I've anticipated every question, if I'm going to embarrass him in front of the investors." Sounds supportive. "He's not bad, just disappointed. I dropped out of Stanford my sophomore year to build Sterling Technologies. He thought I was throwing my life away. When the company took off, he invested heavily. Now he treats me like an investment instead of a daughter. Every decision I make is about ROI. Every conversation is a performance review. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it's all I know. Emma looked up from her coloring. Your daddy sounds mean. Emma, Daniel warned. It's okay, Victoria said. She's not wrong. He's not mean exactly. Just focused on success, on winning, on making sure I never fail. But what about making sure you're happy? Emma asked with devastating simplicity. Victoria had no answer for that. Attention passengers on Flight 2847 to Chicago. We apologize again for the delay. Boarding will begin in approximately 20 minutes. Finally, Emma cheered. Are you sitting with us on the plane, Victoria? Please say yes. Victoria looked at Daniel. I have a first-class seat. Of course you do, he said without judgment. We're in coach, row 32. Victoria made a decision. Give me a minute. She wheeled over to the gate counter. The agent looked up with practiced customer service smile. How can I help you, Ms. Sterling? I need to change my seat. What's available near row 32? The agent's smile faltered. Ma'am, you have a first-class seat. There's nothing near row 32 that would be an upgrade. I don't want an upgrade. I want to sit near my friends. Your friends. Row 32. What's available nearby? The agent pulled up her computer, clearly thinking Victoria had lost her mind. I have 31A available, across the aisle from 32. Perfect. Make the change. But Ms. Sterling, you'll be giving up complimentary drinks, extra legroom, priority deplaning. I know what I'm giving up. Make the change. The agent processed the request, shaking her head slightly. Victoria wheeled back to where Daniel and Emma were gathering their things. All set. I'm in 31A. Daniel stared at her. You gave up first class to sit in coach. I gave up sitting alone to sit with friends. Emma launched herself at Victoria again. This is the best day ever. We're going to have so much fun. I brought my iPad and we can watch movies and share headphones and... Emma, breathe. Daniel laughed. But he was looking at Victoria with something like wonder. You didn't have to do that. I know. I wanted to. Why? Victoria thought about her empty penthouse in San Francisco, her corner office with its view of the bay, the life she'd built that impressed everyone and satisfied no one. Because for the first time in 8 years, I have somewhere I actually want to be. They boarded together. First class was called, and Victoria rolled right past it, following Daniel and Emma down the narrow aisle to row 32. The flight attendants looked confused, whispering to each other about the woman in the expensive wheelchair slumming it in coach. Victoria didn't care. Daniel helped her transfer to the seat, storing her wheelchair with practiced efficiency. Emma claimed the window seat, practically vibrating with excitement. Daniel took the middle, and Victoria settled into 31A, across the aisle, close enough to be part of their circle. Daddy, can Victoria share my blanket? It's big enough for both of us if we stretch it across the aisle. I don't think that's how plain blankets work, baby. But we're a team now. Team share. The plane's engines roared to life. Emma grabbed her father's hand, then reached across the aisle for Victoria's. Hold on tight, everyone. This is the part where we go really fast, and then we fly. Victoria held the little girl's hand, feeling the warmth of human connection, for the first time in longer than she could remember. As the plane lifted off the runway, she felt something shift inside her chest. Something that had been frozen for years starting to thaw. She was flying toward Chicago, toward a presentation that would make or break her company's expansion, toward a father who saw her as a stock ticker, and a board that questioned her every move. But for the first time in her adult life, she wasn't flying alone. Emma squeezed her hand. Victoria, are you scared of flying? A little? It's okay. I'll protect you. That's what friends do. Daniel caught Victoria's eye across the aisle and smiled. A real smile, not the corporate kind Victoria was used to giving and receiving. A smile that said, "We're in this together." And Victoria Sterling, CEO of a $200 million tech company woman who'd negotiated with venture capitalists and fired executives twice her age, smiled back. The woman who'd sat alone in Gate C-47 2 hours ago was gone. In her place was someone beginning to remember what it felt like to be human. The plane leveled out at cruising altitude, and Emma finally released Victoria's hand, immediately pressing her face against the window. Look how tiny everything is. The cars look like ants, and the houses look like toys. Victoria leaned back in her seat, feeling the adrenaline of takeoff fade into something calmer. Her phone sat silent in her bag. She'd turned it off before boarding, ignoring the 17 unread emails and her father's increasingly irritated voicemails. For the next 2 hours, she was unreachable. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like freedom. "You okay?" Daniel asked from across the aisle. "Yeah, just not used to being disconnected." Welcome to my world. I had to delete my work email after Maria died. Kept getting messages about projects, deadlines, invoices. Like the world didn't know my wife was gone and nothing else mattered. Emma turned from the window. Daddy cried for 63 days straight. I counted. Daniel's expression tightened. "Emma, what you did. Every morning when you thought I was still sleeping. But I heard you in the bathroom." Victoria watched Daniel's face, saw the raw pain he was trying to hide from his daughter. "Emma, baby, that's private." "But Victoria's our friend. Friends share things. You said so." "I did say that. You're right." Daniel took a breath, running his hand through his hair. 63 days sounds about right. Some mornings I still wake up and forget she's gone. Reach across the bed and the sheets are cold and it all comes crashing back. "That's why we're moving," Emma explained to Victoria with the matter-of-fact tone children use for devastating subjects. "Daddy said Phoenix has too many ghosts. Chicago doesn't have any ghosts because Mommy never went there. So we can start fresh like a new coloring page." "Is that helping?" Victoria asked Daniel. "The fresh start." "Ask me in 6 months. Right now, it just feels like running. Running from pain or toward something better." Daniel met her eyes. "Does it matter? Either way, you're moving." The flight attendant appeared with the beverage cart. "What can I get you folks?" "Apple juice," Emma said immediately. "Coffee, black," Daniel added. The attendant turned to Victoria. "And for you, Ms. Sterling, would you like to move back to first class? I can arrange it if coach isn't comfortable." Every head in the surrounding rows turned to look at Victoria. She felt Daniel stiffen beside her, saw the recognition dawn on nearby passengers' faces as they placed her from magazine covers and tech conferences. "I'm fine here, thanks. I'll have water." The attendant's smile tightened. "Of course. But if you change your mind, just let me know. We have champagne in first-class caviar service. Water is perfect." As the attendant moved on, Victoria caught the whispers starting around them. "That's Victoria Sterling, the tech CEO. What's she doing in coach? Is that her family?" Daniel's voice dropped low. "Does that happen everywhere you go?" "Pretty much. You get used to it." "Do you get used to it?" Victoria thought about it. "No. You just get better at pretending it doesn't bother you." Emma tugged on Victoria's sleeve. "Why is everyone staring at you?" "Because they recognize me from articles and interviews." "Are you famous?" "Sort of." Emma considered this. "If you're famous, does that mean you're important?" "Some people think so. But Daddy says the most important people are the ones who are kind, not the ones who are on TV. So are you kind?" Daniel groaned. "Emma, you can't just ask people if they're kind." "Why not?" "It's important to know." Victoria smiled despite herself. "Your daughter doesn't pull punches. She gets it from her mother. Maria used to say things that would stop you in your tracks, make you rethink your whole life. Emma's got that same gift, or curse depending on your perspective. I think I would have liked your wife. She would have liked you too. Maria had this thing about people who built walls. She'd see right through them to the person hiding underneath. Drove me crazy when we first started dating. She'd call me out on every defense mechanism, every deflection. Made me face things I'd been running from my whole life. Like what? Daniel's jaw worked. Like the fact that I was terrified of failing. My dad left when I was 8, just walked out one day, left my mom with 3 kids and a mortgage she couldn't afford. I watched her work 3 jobs, watched her break herself, trying to keep us fed. I swore I'd never be like him. Never abandon my family, never fail at providing. So, I worked construction, took every overtime shift I could get. Maria saw through it. Told me I was running from fear instead of toward anything real. Was she right? She was always right. That's what made her so annoying. Daniel's voice cracked on the last word. She made me slow down, made me see Emma's first steps instead of missing them for a shift. Made me understand that being present was more important than being perfect. Emma had gone quiet, listening to her father talk about her mother. Victoria saw tears gathering in the little girl's eyes. "Tell Victoria about the cookies," Emma whispered. Daniel smiled through his own tears. Every Sunday, Maria would make cookies with Emma, any kind Emma wanted. Chocolate chip oatmeal raisin, those weird sugar cookies shaped like dinosaurs. They'd make a massive mess in the kitchen floor, everywhere, chocolate on the ceiling. I'd come home from work and find them dancing to music with cookie dough in their hair. "Mommy said cookies taste better when you make them with love," Emma said. "And when you dance while you bake, the happiness goes into the dough." "We haven't made cookies since she died," Daniel admitted. "I tried once. Bought all the ingredients, pulled out Maria's recipe cards, but I couldn't do it. Stood in the kitchen staring at the mixing bowl and just broke down." Victoria felt something twist in her chest. "What stopped you?" The silence. The house was so quiet. Maria always sang while she baked. Terrible off-key singing that made Emma laugh. Without that sound, baking felt like desecrating a memorial. Emma climbed out of her seat and into her father's lap, wrapping her arms around his neck. "It's okay, Daddy. When we get to Chicago, we'll make cookies together. All 3 of us. Me and you and Victoria." Victoria's a very busy person. She can't just... "Actually," Victoria interrupted, surprising herself. "I'd like that. I haven't baked anything in probably 15 years. My mother used to make these lemon bars that were incredible. After she died, my father threw out all her recipe cards. Said they reminded him too much of what we'd lost. I've regretted not keeping them ever since." "Then it's settled," Emma announced. "We're having a cookie party in Chicago. Victoria, what's your favorite kind?" "Chocolate chip. The classic." "Good choice." "Mommy always said you can tell a lot about a person by their cookie preference. Chocolate chip people are reliable and kind." "What does that make you?" Victoria asked. "Sugar cookies with pink frosting and way too many sprinkles. Mommy said that meant I was joyful and creative and maybe a little chaotic." Daniel laughed. "Your mother was diplomatic. She told me you were a tornado in human form." "Tornadoes are just wind that's really excited about spinning," Emma said with perfect 6-year-old logic. "I'm excited about everything. There's a lot to be excited about." Victoria couldn't remember the last time she'd been excited about anything. Success had become an obligation achievement, a checkbox. When had joy left the equation? Emma. Victoria said, "What are you most excited about in Chicago?" "Making new friends at my new school. And seeing snow. Daddy says Chicago has real snow, not like Phoenix where it barely gets cold. I want to build a snowman and make snow angels and have a snowball fight." "What about you?" Victoria asked Daniel. "What are you looking forward to?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, not waking up in the bed I shared with Maria, not driving past the hospital where she died, not seeing her friends at the grocery store and watching them try to find something to say. I know that sounds like I'm still just running from things, but maybe that's okay for now. Maybe running is how you get enough distance to finally turn around and face what you left behind." I understand that, Victoria said. I've been running my whole life. From my mother's death, from my father's disappointment, from the fear that I'm not actually good enough. Built a company so I'd have something to prove I mattered. But no matter how successful I get, I'm still running. Running from what? Victoria's throat tightened. From being alone. From realizing that I traded everything that matters for things that don't. I have a penthouse in San Francisco with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the bay. Know how many people have been inside it? 3. My housekeeper, my physical therapist, and a delivery guy who got the address wrong. I haven't had a friend over in 4 years, haven't had anyone over. The place is a museum to success, and it's the loneliest place on earth. Emma had been listening intently. You can come visit us in Chicago. Our apartment won't be fancy, but Daddy's really good at making places feel like home. And I'll show you all my stuffed animals. I have 47. Mommy started the collection. 48. Daniel corrected gently. I packed the new one your abuela gave you before we left. 48. See, Victoria. You can meet all 48 of my stuffed animals, and then you won't be lonely anymore. If only it were that simple, Victoria thought. But maybe it was. Maybe loneliness was just a choice you made every day to keep people at arm's length. Maybe connection was always there waiting if you were brave enough to reach for it. I'd like that, Victoria said. Her phone buzzed in her bag. She'd forgotten to turn it completely off, just silenced it. The vibration was insistent, angry almost. Probably her father, probably her assistant, probably the entire board of directors wondering where she'd disappeared to. You should get that, Daniel said, noticing her tension. I should, but I'm not going to. Why not? Because for the first time in 8 years, I'm having a conversation that doesn't involve quarterly earnings or market projections, and I don't want it to end. Daniel studied her face. What's waiting for you in Chicago? A presentation to investors about expanding Sterling Technologies into the Midwest. We're buying a building, renovating it, making it our regional headquarters. If I pull this off, we'll double our revenue in 3 years. If I fail, the board will use it as ammunition to push me out. Push you out of your own company. My father controls 40% of the shares. He could build a coalition if he wanted to. And lately, I think he wants to. I'm not performing to his standards. Not aggressive enough, not cutthroat enough. Too focused on things like accessibility and employee wellness instead of pure profit. Those sound like good things to focus on. Not to men who measure worth in stock prices. Victoria felt the familiar bitterness rising. The Chicago building, I want to make it truly accessible. Not just legal minimum ADA compliance, but actually designed for people with disabilities. Wider doors, better bathrooms, adjustable desks, sensory-friendly spaces. My architect showed me plans that looked good on paper, but would be a nightmare in practice. I pushed back. He complained to my father. Now the board thinks I'm being difficult. Daniel's expression shifted. What kind of accessibility features are you trying to implement? Everything I've needed and never had. Ramps that don't feel like afterthoughts. Bathrooms big enough to actually maneuver a wheelchair. Doors that open automatically, instead of requiring you to prop them with your body while rolling through. Conference rooms where wheelchair users aren't stuck at the end of the table like an afterthought. That's basic human dignity not being difficult. Tell that to my board. They keep asking why we need to spend an extra $2 million on accessibility when the legal minimum would cost half that. I keep trying to explain that it's not about checking boxes, it's about creating spaces where everyone can work without barriers. But they don't get it. How could they? They've never had to fight a door or avoid a bathroom because the stalls are too narrow. Daniel was quiet for a moment. I design accessible spaces. Victoria turned to look at him fully. What? It's what I do, or what I want to do. I've been working construction for 12 years, but my real passion is accessible design. My younger brother has cerebral palsy, uses a wheelchair. Growing up, I watched him struggle with every space that wasn't built for him. Doors he couldn't open, bathrooms he couldn't use, buildings he couldn't enter. So I started studying architecture teaching myself CAD designing spaces that would actually work for him. For everyone. You're serious? Completely. The job in Chicago is with a firm that specializes in accessible construction. It's a step down in pay from what I was making in Phoenix, but it's what I actually care about, what I want to build. Victoria's mind was already racing ahead, seeing the connection, the possibility. Do you have a portfolio? Yeah, it's all digital. Why? Because I'm meeting with architects in Chicago tomorrow, and I'm going to fire every single one of them. They don't understand what I'm trying to build, but you do. Daniel shook his head. Victoria, I appreciate the thought, but I'm not in your league. You're talking about a multi-million-dollar commercial project. I design residential spaces, small-scale renovations. I don't have the credentials for what you're describing. Credentials don't mean anything if the people designing the space don't understand who they're designing it for. I've worked with award-winning architects who've never spent a day in a wheelchair. They design these beautiful, completely useless spaces that look great in photos and fail in practice. You've lived it through your brother. You understand it in a way they never will. I'd need to see the plans, understand the scope. Send me your portfolio tonight. Give me your email and I'll forward you everything. The building specs, the current plans, the budget. Look it over on your own time. If you think you can do better than what I've got, we'll talk. Emma had been listening with wide eyes. Daddy, does this mean you're going to work with Victoria? I don't know, baby. It's complicated. It's not complicated, Victoria said. I need someone who understands accessible design from the inside out. You need a chance to prove what you can do. This could work for both of us. Daniel met her eyes and Victoria saw him wrestling with something. Pride, maybe. Or fear of failing. Or both. I'll send you the portfolio, he said finally. No promises beyond that. That's all I'm asking. Emma clapped her hands. This is perfect. Daddy and Victoria are going to work together, and we're all going to be friends, and make cookies, and Chicago is going to be the best fresh start ever. Emma, slow down, Daniel warned. Victoria's offering to look at my work, not adopt us. But Emma had already moved on, pulling out her coloring book again. Victoria, you have to see the castle I drew. It has a ramp instead of stairs, so everyone can get in. And the princess has a wheelchair made of gold. Victoria took the coloring book, studying Emma's drawing. The castle was elaborate, detailed far beyond what she'd expect from a 6-year-old. Towers and windows, and yes, a ramp spiraling up to the main entrance. The princess sat in an ornate wheelchair crown on her head, smile on her face. Emma, this is incredible. Mommy taught me. She said everyone deserves to feel like royalty, so all my castles have to be accessible. Regular fairy tales are boring because they only work for people who can walk. My fairy tales work for everyone. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes for the second time that night. Your mom sounds like she was an amazing person. She was the best person, Emma said with absolute certainty. She made everyone feel special, even people other people ignored. She'd talk to homeless people on the street, ask them their names, buy them lunch. She'd help old ladies at the grocery store reach things on high shelves. She saw people, really saw them. Daddy says that's a superpower. Your daddy's right. Daniel's voice was rough when he spoke. Maria volunteered at a disability rights organization in Phoenix. That's actually how we met. I was there supporting my brother at an advocacy event. She was there organizing it. She walked up to me and said, "You look like someone who understands why this matters." We talked for 3 hours. I fell in love with her before the night was over. How long were you married? 7 years. Not long enough. Not even close to long enough. Daniel wiped his eyes roughly. She was 31 when she died. We were supposed to have decades together. Watch Emma grow up, see her graduate, walk her down the aisle someday. Now it's just me, and I have no idea how to do this alone. You're not alone, Emma said firmly. You have me. And now you have Victoria too. Emma, we just met Victoria a few hours ago. She's our friend. Friends are family you choose. Mommy said that. Victoria couldn't argue with the logic. She'd known Daniel and Emma for less than 3 hours, but she felt more connected to them than to people she'd worked with for years. There was something about shared vulnerability, about seeing and being seen, that created bonds faster than time ever could. "Your mom was a wise woman," Victoria said. "She was," Emma agreed. "And she's still watching over us. Sometimes I talk to her before bed. Tell her about my day, ask her questions. Daddy thinks I can't hear him, but sometimes I hear him talking to her too." Daniel's face flushed. "Emma." "It's okay, Daddy. I think it's nice that you still talk to her. It means you miss her. Missing people means you loved them." The flight attendant appeared again. "We'll be serving dinner shortly. Chicken or pasta?" They ordered food. None of them really wanted, eating mechanically, while Emma chattered about Chicago, about her new school, about the snow she couldn't wait to see. Victoria found herself relaxing into the conversation, laughing at Emma's observations, sharing stories from her own childhood that she hadn't thought about in years. "My mom used to take me to the beach every Sunday," Victoria said, surprising herself with the memory. "We'd get up early, pack sandwiches, spend the whole day looking for shells. She collected them in these glass jars, had dozens of them lining the windowsills in our house. After she died, my father threw them all away. Said they were just clutter." "That's so sad," Emma said. "He threw away her treasures. He threw away everything that reminded him of her. Photos, clothes, books. Like if he erased every trace of her, he wouldn't hurt as much. But it didn't work. The hurt just got bigger, because now we didn't even have the memories to hold on to." Daniel leaned forward. "Is that why you work so hard, trying to fill the space she left?" Victoria had never thought about it that way, but the truth hit her like cold water. "Maybe. If I achieve enough, accomplish enough, maybe I'll matter enough to make up for her being gone." You know that's not how it works, right? Intellectually, yes. Emotionally, I'm still 12 years old trying to make my father look at me the way he looked at her. "Does he?" Emma asked. "Look at you like that?" "No. He looks at me like a quarterly report. Analyzes my performance, finds me lacking, suggests improvements. That's mean. That's business." "Business sounds terrible," Emma declared. "I'm never doing business when I grow up." "What are you going to do?" Victoria asked, grateful for the change of subject. "I'm going to build castles. Real ones, not just drawings. Castles where everyone is welcome and no one is left out, and there are ramps and elevators, and everyone gets to be a princess if they want." Daniel smiled. "An architect, then?" "A magical architect," Emma corrected. "Regular architects are boring. I'm going to be magical." "I think you already are," Victoria said. Emma beamed. "Thank you. You're magical too. You're like a real-life princess who runs a kingdom. That's pretty magical." If only she knew how unmagical it felt most days. But Victoria didn't say that. Instead, she accepted the compliment. Let herself imagine for a moment that her empire was a kingdom, that her employees were subjects she protected instead of resources she managed. When had she stopped seeing people as people? When had everything become about optimization and efficiency instead of humanity? The plane hit turbulence, jolting everyone in their seats. Emma grabbed for both her father's hand and Victoria's holding tight. "It's okay, baby," Daniel soothed. "Just some bumps." "I know, but I like holding hands anyway." They stayed like that as the plane steadied, 3 people connected across the aisle by the grip of a small girl who refused to let anyone face things alone. Victoria's phone buzzed again in her bag. Then again. Then again. The vibrations were constant now, insistent. Something was wrong. "You should really check that," Daniel said. Reluctantly, Victoria pulled out her phone. 37 missed calls. 62 unread emails. 23 text messages, all from her father. Her stomach dropped as she scrolled through the messages, watching the tone shift from irritated to furious to something else. Something that looked like panic. "Dad." Answer your phone. Dad. Victoria. This is serious. Dad. The board called an emergency meeting. Dad. They're moving to remove you as CEO. Dad. Call me now. Victoria's hands started shaking. She read the last message again, and again. The words didn't change. What is it? Daniel asked, seeing her face. I have to make a call. She unbuckled, making her way to the back of the plane where she could talk privately. Her father answered on the first ring. Where the hell have you been? My flight was delayed. What's going on? What's going on is that Marcus Chen leaked the Chicago accessibility budget to the press, made it sound like you're wasting company resources on unnecessary modifications. The board is panicking, investors are asking questions, and the vote to remove you as CEO is scheduled for Monday morning. Victoria felt the floor drop out from under her. They can't do that. They can and they will unless you fix this. The Chicago presentation tomorrow isn't just about expansion anymore. It's about proving you're fit to lead this company. You need to cut the accessibility budget, show the investors you're focused on profit over pet projects. Pet projects, Dad. This is about basic human dignity. This is about saving your job. Victoria. I didn't invest $40 million in your company so you could turn it into a charity. Cut the accessibility budget, give them the presentation they want to hear, or I'll vote with the board to remove you. The line went dead. Victoria stood in the galley phone in her trembling hand, feeling her entire world crumble. Everything she'd built, everything she'd sacrificed, about to be taken away, because she'd dared to care about something beyond profit margins. A flight attendant touched her shoulder. Ma'am, we need you to return to your seat. Victoria made her way back, barely seeing where she was going. When she sat down, Daniel took one look at her face and knew. What happened? The board is trying to remove me as CEO. They think I'm wasting company money on accessibility features. My father is giving me an ultimatum: cut the budget or lose my company. Emma had fallen asleep against the window. Daniel's voice was quiet, so as not to wake her. What are you going to do? Victoria looked at this man she'd met 3 hours ago, this stranger who'd become something like a friend. She thought about his brother, about Emma's accessible castles, about all the people who navigated a world that wasn't built for them. She thought about her mother's shells in glass jars thrown away like they didn't matter. She thought about who she'd become in the pursuit of success and who she'd lost along the way. I'm going to fight, Victoria said, even if it costs me everything. Daniel's expression shifted from concern to something harder. Fight how if your father controls 40% and the board wants you out, the math isn't in your favor. I know the math. I've run every scenario in my head for the past 2 years, ever since the board started questioning my decisions. But I'm not cutting the accessibility budget. I won't build another space that treats people with disabilities like an afterthought. Even if it costs you your company. Victoria looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully against the window, at Daniel's calloused hands that built spaces for people the world forgot. She thought about spending the rest of her life in boardrooms defending profit margins, cutting corners, becoming the kind of CEO who valued shareholders over human beings. It's not my company if I have to compromise everything I believe in to keep it. Daniel studied her face. You're serious. Completely. I didn't build Sterling Technologies to make my father richer. I built it because I wanted to prove that success and ethics aren't mutually exclusive, that you can make money and make a difference. If the board can't see that, then maybe they deserve a different CEO. That's brave. Or crazy. Possibly both. Definitely both. Victoria felt her phone buzz again. Another message from her father. She didn't look at it. I need to see your portfolio tonight. If I'm going into that presentation tomorrow defending the accessibility budget, I need ammunition. I need designs that prove it's not about wasting money, it's about building better spaces. Daniel pulled out his phone, fingers moving quickly. I'm sending you everything I've got. Residential designs, commercial concepts, a few projects I did pro bono for disability advocacy groups. It's not polished like what you're probably used to, but it's real. It works. Victoria's phone dinged with the email notification. She opened the attachment, scrolling through Daniel's portfolio, and felt something shift in her chest. The designs were beautiful, elegant, but more than that, they were thoughtful. Every detail considered from the perspective of someone who actually needed these features. A bathroom where the sink height was adjustable, the mirror angled for seated users, the soap dispenser positioned within easy reach, a kitchen with lowered countertops that didn't sacrifice style for function, an office building entrance that integrated ramps so seamlessly into the design they felt intentional rather than obligatory. Daniel, these are incredible. They're just concepts. Most of them have never been built. Why not? Because clients want to check the ADA boxes and move on. They don't want to spend extra money making spaces truly accessible. They definitely don't want to hire a construction worker with a passion project instead of a licensed architect. Victoria zoomed in on a commercial building design. This is exactly what I've been trying to explain to my architects. See this entrance. The ramp isn't separated from the stairs, it's integrated into the same flow. Everyone uses the same space, but it works for everyone. That's the whole point. Universal design isn't about creating separate spaces for people with disabilities. It's about designing one space that works for all bodies. Exactly. But my architects keep showing me plans with the accessible entrance around back, the accessible bathroom on a different floor, like segregation is somehow acceptable, as long as it's legal. Daniel leaned across the aisle to see her screen better. Your current plans have the accessible entrance in the back, in the loading dock area. They said it was more cost-effective than modifying the front entrance. That's not cost-effective, that's discriminatory. You're literally telling wheelchair users to use the service entrance like they're deliveries, not people. Victoria felt her anger crystallizing into resolve. Show me how you design the front entrance. Right now. We've got 90 minutes before we land. Help me build a presentation that proves why accessibility isn't optional. Daniel hesitated. Victoria, I can't design a multi-million-dollar building in 90 minutes. I'm not asking you to design the whole building. Just show me enough to prove the concept, enough to make the board see what I've been trying to tell them. And if they still vote you out, then at least I'll go down fighting for something that matters. Emma stirred, rubbing her eyes. Why is everyone talking so loud? Sorry, baby, Daniel said softly. We're just working on something important. Go back to sleep. I'm not sleepy anymore. What are you working on? Victoria turned her laptop so Emma could see the screen. Your dad is helping me design a building that works for everyone. Want to help? Emma's face lit up. Like my castles. Exactly like your castles. For the next hour, the three of them huddled around Victoria's laptop. Daniel sketched ideas on napkins while Victoria typed notes, and Emma offered her own 6-year-old wisdom about what made spaces welcoming. The flight attendants watched them with confusion, probably wondering why a tech CEO was working with a construction worker and a child, instead of sitting alone in first class drinking champagne. Victoria didn't care. For the first time in years, work felt like creation instead of obligation. What about automatic doors here? Daniel pointed to the entrance. They're not just for wheelchair users. Parents with strollers, delivery people, anyone carrying something heavy, everyone benefits. But they're expensive, Victoria said, playing devil's advocate the way her board would. So is replacing manual doors every few years because they're constantly breaking from heavy use. Automatic doors last longer, require less maintenance, and improve traffic flow. You're not spending more money, you're investing smarter. Victoria typed that into her notes. What else? Lighting. Your current plans have standard overhead fluorescent lighting. It's cheap but terrible for people with sensory processing issues, migraines, or visual impairments. Switch to adjustable LED panels. Users can control brightness and color temperature. It costs maybe 15% more upfront, but reduces energy costs by 30% annually. That's a net savings. Exactly. Universal design isn't about charity. It's about building smarter, more efficient spaces that work better for everyone. Emma tugged on Victoria's sleeve. What about colors? My special education teacher says some colors make people feel calm, and some colors make people feel excited. Your building should have both, so people can pick what they need. Daniel smiled. She's right. Color psychology is a real thing. Strategic use of color can reduce stress, improve focus, increase productivity. Victoria made more notes. My board is going to think I've lost my mind bringing color psychology into a corporate headquarters design. Your board thinks in quarterly profits. Show them how reducing employee stress reduces sick days, improves retention, increases productivity. It all impacts the bottom line. You're good at this. I've had to be. When you're advocating for accessibility, you learn fast that appeals to human decency don't work on people who only care about money. You have to speak their language. Show them the ROI on doing the right thing. Victoria looked at Daniel with new appreciation. How did you learn all this? Trial and error. Mostly error. I spent years pitching accessible design concepts and getting rejected. Finally figured out that I couldn't lead with, "This is the right thing to do." I had to lead with, "This will save you money and make you more money." Once I learned to translate ethics into economics, people started listening. That's depressing. That's reality. But here's the thing. I don't care why they say yes as long as they say yes. If a corporation builds an accessible space because it improves their bottom line, instead of because it's morally correct, disabled people still get an accessible space. The motivation doesn't matter if the outcome is the same. Mommy used to say that too, Emma chimed in. She said some people do good things for good reasons, and some people do good things for selfish reasons, but either way, good things are happening. So celebrate the good things, and don't worry so much about why. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes again. Your mother really was wise. She was. Is. Emma's face scrunched up. I still don't know which word to use. Both, Victoria said, echoing what she'd told Daniel earlier. She was wise, and because you remember her wisdom, she still is. Emma seemed satisfied with that answer. She went back to coloring, adding what she called happy colors to Victoria's building design. Daniel pulled up the Chicago building specs on his own phone. What's your total budget for the renovation? $12 million. The board approved $8 million for standard renovations. I'm fighting for an additional $4 million, specifically for accessibility features. That's not unreasonable for a building this size. What are they offering as an alternative? $2 million. Bare minimum ADA compliance. Everything my architects are planning is technically legal but functionally useless. Daniel scrolled through the specs, his expression growing darker. These plans are worse than I thought. They've got one accessible bathroom on the first floor for a 12-story building. One accessible parking spot in a lot that holds 200 cars. Doorways that are technically wide enough to meet code, but only if you're in a standard wheelchair and can navigate with perfect precision. I know. That's why I've been fighting them. But the board sees $4 million in unnecessary spending instead of seeing people who'll be excluded by cutting corners. $4 million is actually conservative for doing this right. You could easily justify $6 or $7 million if you wanted to build something truly inclusive. Victoria laughed bitterly. I can't even get them to approve $4 million. How would I ever sell 6? By changing the conversation. Stop calling it accessibility spending. Call it universal design investment. Show them how features that help wheelchair users also help parents with strollers, elderly employees, people with temporary injuries, delivery workers. You're not building for a minority. You're building for everyone. That's good. That's really good. Victoria typed frantically. What else? They worked together building a presentation that reframed every accessibility feature as a smart business decision. Automatic doors became traffic flow optimization. Adjustable desks became productivity enhancement. Sensory-friendly spaces became employee wellness investment. By the time the pilot announced their descent into Chicago, Victoria had a completely new presentation that spoke the language of profit while doing the work of justice. "I think this might actually work," Victoria said, reviewing their notes. "Or they'll fire you for wasting time on a construction worker's ideas instead of listening to your high-priced architects." "Then they fire me, but at least I'll have tried." The plane touched down with a jolt. Emma cheered. "We're here. We're in Chicago. New start, new adventures, new everything." As they taxied to the gate, Victoria's phone exploded with notifications. Dozens of messages from board members, her assistant, her father. She silenced them all. "What's your plan for tonight?" Daniel asked as they gathered their belongings. "Check into my hotel, finalize this presentation, maybe sleep for 2 hours if I'm lucky. And tomorrow, walk into that boardroom and fight for my company." "You mean fight for your vision of what your company should be?" Victoria paused. "Yeah, I guess I do." They deplaned together, Daniel helping Victoria navigate the crowded jetway, while Emma held tight to Victoria's hand. The terminal was chaos, people rushing in every direction, but Victoria felt strangely calm. She'd made her decision. Whatever happened tomorrow, she wouldn't compromise. "Where are you staying?" Victoria asked as they reached baggage claim. "Cheap motel on the south side. It's all I could afford until I get my first paycheck. We'll look for a real apartment this weekend." Victoria pulled out her phone, typing quickly. "I just sent you an address. It's a furnished corporate apartment Sterling Technologies keeps for visiting executives. 3 bedrooms, full kitchen available for the next 2 months until we move people into the new building." "Victoria, we can't." "You can and you will. And you. Consider it payment for the consulting work you just did on the plane. That presentation you helped me build is worth way more than 2 months of rent." Daniel looked like he wanted to argue, but Emma was already bouncing up and down. "Does it have a bathtub?" "The motel only has showers, and I miss bubble baths." "It has 2 bathtubs," Victoria confirmed. "Then we're definitely staying there." "Thank you, Victoria." Daniel's jaw worked. "I don't like taking charity." "It's not charity. It's business. I'm hiring you as a consultant for the Chicago project. That apartment is part of your compensation package." "You can't hire me. You might not even have a company after tomorrow." "Then I'll hire you for my next company, or my next company. Either way, you're staying in that apartment, and that's final." Emma hugged Victoria's waist. "Thank you for taking care of us. That's what friends do." Victoria hugged her back, feeling the warmth of connection she'd been missing for so long. "You're welcome, sweetheart." They collected their luggage and headed for the exit. Victoria's phone rang. Her father. Again. She declined the call. "You're going to have to talk to him eventually," Daniel said. "I know, just not tonight. Tonight I need to focus on building a presentation that might save my company, or destroy my relationship with my father. Possibly both. Those are high stakes. The highest. But if I back down now, if I cut that accessibility budget and become the kind of CEO who values profit over people, I'll lose myself. And I've already lost too much to let that happen." They exited into the cold Chicago night. The wind hit Victoria's face sharp and clean. She'd been to Chicago dozens of times for business, but tonight it felt different. Tonight she wasn't alone. "My hotel is that way," Victoria pointed. "The apartment is about 20 minutes in the opposite direction. I'll have my assistant send you the keys and access codes." "What time is your presentation tomorrow?" 10 a.m. Wish me luck." "You don't need luck. You need courage. And from what I've seen tonight, you've got plenty of that." Emma hugged Victoria one more time. "You're going to win tomorrow. I can feel it. And when you do, we're making cookies to celebrate." Victoria smiled through tears. She didn't know she was crying. "Deal." She watched them walk away, Daniel carrying their luggage, Emma skipping beside him, chattering about their new adventure. Then Victoria turned toward her hotel alone again, but somehow not lonely. Her phone rang. Her father. This time she answered. Dad. Thank God. Victoria, we need to talk about tomorrow. I've been working the board calling in favors. I think I can get them to table the vote to remove you if you agree to certain compromises. What kind of compromises? Cut the accessibility budget to $2 million. Fire the project managers who've been pushing back against the architects. Bring in someone from outside to oversee the Chicago expansion, someone the board trusts. Someone you trust, you mean? Someone who understands business. Victoria, you're brilliant with technology, but you're letting emotions cloud your judgment. This accessibility crusade is going to cost you everything. Victoria thought about Daniel's designs, about Emma's castles, about all the people who deserved spaces built for them instead of in spite of them. What if everything I'd lose isn't worth keeping? Silence on the other end. Then her father's voice, cold and final. If you walk into that presentation tomorrow and defend that $4 million accessibility budget, I'll vote with the board to remove you as CEO. You'll lose your company, your position, everything you've built. Is your pride really worth that? It's not about pride, Dad. It's about integrity. Integrity doesn't pay dividends, Victoria. Maybe not, but it lets me sleep at night. You're making a mistake. Then it's my mistake to make. Her father hung up without saying goodbye. Victoria stood on the sidewalk outside her hotel phone, in her hand, feeling the weight of tomorrow pressing down on her shoulders. She could back down, cut the budget, keep her company, keep her father's approval, keep the life she'd built. Or she could fight, risk everything, possibly lose everything, but keep herself. The choice had never been clearer. Victoria rolled into her hotel, checked in, and went straight to her room. She didn't sleep. She worked through the night refining the presentation Daniel had helped her build, adding data and projections and case studies. She built an argument that appealed to profit while serving purpose. By 5 a.m., she had something she believed in, something worth fighting for. By 6 a.m., she was in the shower washing away the exhaustion. By 7 a.m., she was dressed in her armor, the navy suit she wore to her toughest negotiations, the earrings her mother had given her before she died. By 8 a.m., she was in the car heading to the office building where her entire future would be decided. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. Daniel. Emma wanted me to tell you that princesses are brave even when they're scared, especially when they're scared. Good luck today. Victoria smiled. She texted back. Victoria, tell Emma thank you, and tell her I'm terrified but I'm doing it anyway. Daniel. That's what makes you a real princess. Not the crown. The courage. Victoria arrived at the office 30 minutes early. The boardroom was on the 12th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. She'd been in this room hundreds of times. Today it felt like entering an arena. The board members trickled in. Marcus Chen, the CFO, who'd leaked the budget. Patricia Morrison, the investor who'd never trusted a woman in a wheelchair to run a company. Robert Chang, the venture capitalist who'd wanted her father to take over as CEO from the beginning. And her father, James Sterling, sitting at the head of the table like he already owned the place. Victoria, her father said, his voice carefully neutral. I trust you've reconsidered your position on the accessibility budget. I have. Relief flickered across his face. Good. Then let's begin. I've reconsidered it, Victoria continued, and I'm more committed than ever. In fact, I'm proposing we increase it to $6 million. The room erupted. Board members talking over each other, voices raised in anger and disbelief. Her father's face went white, then red. Victoria, what the hell are you doing? Victoria pulled up her presentation on the large screen. I'm showing you why universal design isn't an expense, it's an investment. And I've got the data to prove it. For the next 45 minutes, Victoria presented everything she and Daniel had built together. She showed them how automatic doors reduced maintenance costs, How adjustable lighting cut energy expenses. How ergonomic design decreased workplace injuries and their associated costs. How inclusive spaces attracted better talent, improved employee retention, and enhanced the company's reputation. She showed them case studies from companies that had invested in universal design and seen their stock prices rise. She showed them demographic data proving that aging baby boomers and returning veterans were creating a massive market of people who needed accessible spaces. She showed them the ROI on doing the right thing. And she showed them Daniel's designs beautiful and functional, proving that accessibility and aesthetics weren't mutually exclusive. When she finished, the room was silent. Patricia Morrison spoke first. "Where did these designs come from? These aren't from our architects. They're from a consultant I hired, someone who actually understands universal design instead of just checking legal boxes." "A consultant you hired without board approval," Marcus Chen said. "More unauthorized spending." "I haven't paid him yet. I wanted to see if the board had any vision before I committed company resources." Her father's voice was ice. "This is exactly the kind of reckless decision-making that proves you're not ready to lead this company. Hiring consultants without approval, proposing budgets that exceed your authority, prioritizing feel-good initiatives over shareholder value." Shareholder value. Victoria turned to face him. "Dad, I've quadrupled this company's value in 8 years. I've delivered consistent returns, expanded into new markets, built a brand that attracts top talent. But the moment I try to build something that actually matters, something that serves people, instead of just extracting profit from them, you call it reckless. I call it emotional. You're letting your disability cloud your business judgment." The words hung in the air like poison. Victoria felt every eye in the room on her, waiting to see if she'd break. She didn't break. She stood taller. "My disability isn't clouding my judgment. It's informing it. I see the barriers in this world that you don't notice because they don't affect you. I understand the cost of exclusion because I live it every day. And I refuse to build another space that treats people like me as an afterthought." "Then you refuse to lead this company," her father said. "I'm calling for a vote. All in favor of removing Victoria Sterling as CEO." Patricia Morrison raised her hand. Marcus Chen raised his. Robert Chang hesitated, then raised his. Victoria's father raised his hand last, looking her straight in the eye as he did it. All opposed. 3 hands stayed down. Victoria was 2 votes short. "The motion passes," her father said. "Victoria, you're removed as CEO effective immediately. You'll retain your shares, but you'll no longer have operational control. I'll be assuming the role of interim CEO until we find a permanent replacement." Victoria felt the world tilt. 8 years of her life gone in a vote that took 30 seconds. "I need to say something," a voice called from the back of the room. Everyone turned. Daniel Rodriguez stood in the doorway, Emma beside him holding his hand. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus Chen demanded. "I'm the consultant Victoria hired, Daniel Rodriguez. And I'm also the person who's going to explain why voting her out is the worst business decision you'll ever make." Victoria's father stood up, his face darkening. "This is a closed board meeting. You have no right to be here." "Actually, I do." Daniel pulled a folder from his bag. "Victoria hired me as an accessibility consultant 12 hours ago. These are the signed contracts, which makes me a company contractor with a vested interest in how this company operates." Marcus Chen looked ready to explode. "Security needs to remove these people immediately." "Wait." Robert Chang held up his hand. "I want to hear what he has to say." "Robert, this is highly irregular," Patricia Morrison protested. "So is firing a CEO who's quadrupled our stock value in 8 years." Robert gestured to Daniel. "You've got 5 minutes." Emma tugged on her father's hand. "Daddy, I'm scared. Everyone looks mad." Daniel knelt down to his daughter's level. "I know, baby, but sometimes grown-ups need to hear the truth even when it makes them uncomfortable. Can you be brave for me?" Emma nodded, clutching her coloring book to her chest. Daniel stood and walked to the front of the room, positioning himself beside Victoria. "My name is Daniel Rodriguez. I'm a construction worker and accessibility designer. My younger brother has cerebral palsy. I've spent the last 12 years watching him navigate a world that wasn't built for him. Doors he can't open, bathrooms he can't use, buildings he can't enter. And I've spent those same 12 years learning to design spaces that work for everyone." "This is touching," James Sterling interrupted, "but we don't have time for your life story." "Then I'll get to the point. You're about to make a massive financial mistake because you don't understand the market you're entering. Chicago has the third largest population of people with disabilities in the United States. Over 800,000 people. That's 800,000 potential employees, customers, and community members who will remember whether your company treated them as an afterthought or as valued stakeholders." Patricia Morrison crossed her arms. "We're not in the charity business, Mr. Rodriguez." "Neither am I. I'm in the profit business. And I'm telling you that the profit is in inclusion." Daniel pulled out his phone, connecting it to the display screen. "Let me show you some numbers your CFO conveniently left out of his analysis." Charts and graphs filled the screen. Data on the spending power of people with disabilities, on the growing aging population, on the return on investment from accessible design. The disability market represents $490 billion in disposable income in the United States alone. When you include friends and family members of people with disabilities, that number jumps to $8 trillion globally. Companies that ignore this market are leaving money on the table. Companies that actively exclude this market are burning money. Marcus Chen scoffed. "Those are inflated numbers, advocacy group propaganda. Those are numbers from the Department of Labor and the Census Bureau. But if you don't trust federal data, let's talk about your competitors." Microsoft invested $25 million in accessibility features last year and saw their stock price increase by 43%. Apple's accessibility innovations have become selling points that drive consumer loyalty across all demographics. Google's universal design principles have reduced their workplace injury costs by 60%. Robert Chang leaned forward, interested now. 60%. 60%. Because when you design spaces that work for all bodies, you reduce repetitive strain injuries, back problems, mobility issues. You cut healthcare costs, workers' comp claims, disability leave. Victoria's $6 million investment would pay for itself in reduced injury costs within 3 years. "That's speculative," Patricia Morrison said, but her tone had shifted from dismissive to skeptical. "Progress. It's documented. I've got case studies from 15 major corporations that implemented universal design principles and tracked the ROI. Every single one saw positive returns within 5 years, most within 3. Daniel pulled up more slides, years of research he'd compiled while trying to convince clients that accessibility wasn't charity. "But let's talk about the Chicago market specifically. You're building a 12-story headquarters in a city with strict building codes and an active disability rights community. If you build to bare minimum ADA standards, you'll face protests, negative press, and potential lawsuits. You'll become a case study in what not to do." "We're following all legal requirements," Marcus Chen insisted. "Legal and ethical aren't the same thing. Legal and smart aren't the same thing either. You build a headquarters with one accessible bathroom on the first floor, and the Chicago Tribune will run that story. Tech giant's new building excludes disabled workers. Social media will eat you alive. Your recruitment will suffer. Your brand will suffer. And your stock price will suffer." Emma tugged on Victoria's sleeve. "Can I say something?" "Emma, not now," Daniel warned. "But I have something important to say." Emma looked at the board members with those big brown eyes that had convinced Victoria to sit with them in the airport. "You're being mean to Victoria because she wants to help people like her. That's not fair." "Little girl, this is a business discussion," James Sterling said condescendingly. "We don't need—" "My mommy died." Emma interrupted, her voice clear and strong. And before she died, she told me that the most important thing in life is to be kind. She said making money is easy, but making the world better is hard. And she said I should always pick hard things that matter over easy things that don't. The room went silent. Patricia Morrison's expression softened slightly. Emma walked up to the table, setting her coloring book down in front of the board members. I draw castles with ramps, because in my castles everyone gets to come inside. Not just people who can walk upstairs. Everyone. And Victoria wants to build a castle like that. A place where everyone is welcome. But you want to save money by leaving people out. She flipped to her drawing of Victoria as a princess surrounded by people holding hands. This is what the world should look like. People helping people. Not people being mean to each other because they're scared of spending money. Robert Chang picked up the coloring book, studying the drawing. How old are you? 6 3/4. Almost 7. And you drew this? My mommy taught me. She said art should make the world prettier and kinder. So I draw kind things. Robert looked at the drawing for a long moment, then at Victoria, then at Daniel. Mr. Rodriguez, you said you have documentation supporting your claims about ROI on accessibility investment. 15 case studies, peer-reviewed research from 3 universities, and economic impact assessments from the CDC and Department of Labor. I can send you everything. Do that. Send it to all of us. Robert turned to the other board members. I'm moving to table the vote to remove Victoria as CEO pending review of this information. Robert, we already voted, James Sterling said sharply. And I'm invoking my right as a board member to request reconsideration based on new information. We rushed that vote. We should take 24 hours to review the data Mr. Rodriguez is providing. Marcus Chen stood up. This is ridiculous. We're letting a construction worker and a child derail a board decision. We're letting new information inform our decision-making, Robert corrected. That's called due diligence. Unless you're afraid the data might prove you wrong. Patricia Morrison surprised everyone by saying, I second Robert's motion to table the vote. Patricia. James Sterling looked betrayed. James. I've known you for 20 years. You're a brilliant businessman, but you're also stubborn as hell, and I think your relationship with your daughter is clouding your judgment just as much as you claim her disability is clouding hers. That's out of line. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, this looks less like a CEO making poor business decisions, and more like a father trying to control a daughter who won't do what he wants. Patricia gestured to the presentation still on the screen. Victoria's proposals make financial sense. She's documented every claim. She's thought this through, and we're dismissing her because we're uncomfortable with her methods, not because her methods are wrong. I agree, Robert said. We table the vote for 24 hours. Everyone reviews the accessibility data. We reconvene tomorrow with clearer heads and better information. James Sterling looked around the room, realizing he was losing control. All in favor of tabling. Robert, Patricia, and 2 other board members raised their hands. 5 votes. Enough. The vote is tabled, Robert announced. This meeting is adjourned until tomorrow same time. The board members began filing out. Emma ran to Victoria, throwing her arms around her. You didn't lose. The princess didn't lose. Victoria was shaking, adrenaline crashing through her system. Not yet, anyway. Daniel knelt beside Victoria's chair. You okay? I don't know. That was the most terrifying hour of my life. You were incredible. Standing up to your father like that, defending your vision even when everyone was against you. I had help. Victoria looked at Emma. Thank you for being brave. You said exactly what the board needed to hear. I said what Mommy would have said. She never let people be mean to each other. Not even important business people. James Sterling was the last to leave the boardroom. He stopped in front of Victoria, his expression unreadable. Dad, don't. Just don't. He turned to Daniel. I don't know who you are or what your angle is, but if you hurt my daughter or this company, I will destroy you. I don't have an angle. I'm just trying to help build something that matters. Everyone has an angle. James looked at Victoria one more time, something like pain flickering across his face. You have 24 hours to prove this isn't a massive mistake. Don't waste it. He left without another word. Victoria let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. That went better than I expected. Better he just threatened me and gave you an ultimatum. Yeah, but he didn't vote me out permanently. For my father, that's practically a hug. Emma giggled. Your daddy is scary, but my daddy is scarier when he needs to be. He protected you. Daniel ruffled his daughter's hair. I just told the truth. The truth isn't scary. It is to people who don't want to hear it, Victoria said. Thank you, both of you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up. You'd have fought alone and probably lost, Daniel said bluntly. But you're not alone anymore, so you didn't lose. Not yet, but we've got 24 hours to make sure tomorrow's vote goes differently. Victoria checked her watch. I need to compile everything into a formal presentation. Data case studies, financial projections. Something so bulletproof they can't argue with it. I'll help. Emma needs to get to her new school anyway. I enrolled her this morning. I can drop her off and come back. You enrolled her already? I'm not taking chances. She needs stability routine. School provides both. Emma tugged on her father's sleeve. Daddy, can Victoria come to my school? I want to show her my new classroom. Emma, Victoria has to work. Actually, Victoria interrupted, I'd love to see your school. Give me something normal to think about before I spend the rest of the day drowning in spreadsheets. The school was a 20-minute drive, a cheerful brick building with a playground and a rainbow painted on one wall. Daniel pulled into the accessible parking spot, helping Emma grab her backpack. You nervous? He asked his daughter. A little. What if the other kids don't like me? Then they're missing out on knowing an amazing person. But I think they're going to love you. Victoria wheeled alongside them as they entered the building. The hallways were wide, the doors automatic, the bathrooms clearly marked with accessibility features. Someone had designed this school with thought and care. This is well done, Victoria observed. Ramps integrated into the design, not tacked on as afterthoughts. Lowered water fountains, visual and auditory fire alarms. Whoever designed this understood universal access. A teacher appeared, young and energetic, with a bright smile. You must be Emma. I'm Ms. Jackson, your new teacher. We're so excited to have you in our class. Emma hid slightly behind her father's leg. Hi. Is this your dad? And this is my friend Victoria. She's a princess who runs a kingdom, a business kingdom. Ms. Jackson laughed. Well, it's wonderful to meet all of you. Emma, would you like to see your classroom? Emma looked up at Daniel. Will you stay? I'll walk you in and make sure you're settled. Then I have to go help Victoria save her kingdom. Okay, but you'll pick me up after school. I promise. 3 o'clock right here. They walked Emma to her classroom, a bright space filled with books and art supplies and beanbag chairs. Other children were already there playing and talking. A little boy with Down syndrome waved at Emma from the reading corner. A girl with leg braces smiled from her desk. Everyone here is different, Emma whispered to Victoria. In good ways. The best ways, Victoria agreed. Ms. Jackson knelt down to Emma's level. Emma, we're all different here. Different abilities, different backgrounds, different ways of learning. That's what makes us strong. We help each other. Does that sound good? Emma nodded, some of her nervousness fading. That sounds really good. Then let's find you a cubby for your backpack and get you settled. Daniel hugged his daughter tight. I love you, baby. Be brave. Be kind. Be yourself. I will, Daddy. You be brave too. Go help Princess Victoria win. Victoria wheeled over to Emma. Thank you for being brave for me this morning. You saved the day. That's what friends do. We save each other. As they left the school, Daniel was quiet. Victoria could see him struggling, probably second-guessing the move to Chicago, wondering if he'd made the right choice uprooting his daughter. She's going to be fine, Victoria said. That teacher clearly knows what she's doing, and Emma's the kind of kid who makes friends everywhere. I know. I just hate leaving her. Every time I walk away, I'm terrified something will happen. That she'll need me, and I won't be there. Like with Maria. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I wasn't there when Maria died. I was at work 40 minutes away. By the time I got to the hospital, she was already gone. I didn't get to say goodbye, didn't get to tell her I loved her one more time. So now every time I leave Emma anywhere, my brain screams that something terrible will happen, and I won't be there again. That's trauma. That's your brain trying to protect you from experiencing that loss again. Knowing that doesn't make it easier. No, but it helps to name it. To recognize that the fear is your trauma talking, not reality. Daniel glanced at her. You sound like you know about trauma. I do. Lost my mother at 12. Spent the next 16 years convinced that everyone I cared about would leave. So I stopped caring about anyone. Stopped letting anyone get close. Built walls so high that by the time I realized I was lonely, I'd forgotten how to let anyone in. Until a 6-year-old forced her way past your walls. Victoria smiled. Until Emma decided I needed a friend, whether I wanted one or not. They drove back to Victoria's office in comfortable silence. Daniel helped her set up in a conference room, spreading out laptops and documents and coffee. For the next 6 hours, they built a presentation that was part business proposal, part moral argument, part vision for a different kind of company. Victoria pulled together financial projections showing the ROI on accessibility investment. Daniel provided case studies from companies that had successfully implemented universal design. Together, they created a narrative that spoke to profit and purpose simultaneously. Around 3 o'clock, Daniel's phone alarm went off. I need to get Emma. Go, I can finish this. You sure? Positive. Besides, Emma needs you more than I do right now. Daniel hesitated at the door. Victoria, can I ask you something? Of course. Why are you really fighting this hard? You could cut the budget, keep your job, keep your father's approval. Why risk everything? Victoria thought about Emma's drawings, about spaces built for everyone, about the kind of world she wanted to live in. Because if I back down now, I prove my father right. I prove that I'm not strong enough to lead, that my disability does cloud my judgment, that I should let other people make decisions for me. And I've spent my whole life fighting against that narrative. I'm not about to surrender now. Even if you lose, especially if I lose, because at least I'll lose on my own terms, fighting for something I believe in. Daniel smiled. Your mother would be proud of you. The words hit Victoria harder than she expected. You think so. I know so. Maria used to say that courage isn't about winning. It's about showing up and fighting even when you know you might lose. You're showing up. That takes real courage. After Daniel left, Victoria worked alone, refining the presentation until every word was perfect. Her phone rang constantly, her father, board members, her assistant, but she ignored them all. This presentation would speak for itself. Around 7 p.m., there was a knock on the conference room door. Victoria looked up to find Patricia Morrison standing there. May I come in? Victoria gestured to a chair. Of course. Patricia sat down, looking older than Victoria remembered. Tired. I owe you an apology. For what? For doubting you. For letting my own biases convince me that you weren't capable of leading this company. I've watched you build sterling technologies from nothing. I've seen you navigate challenges that would have destroyed people twice your age. And when you proposed something that made me uncomfortable, something that challenged my assumptions about business, I defaulted to doubt instead of trust. Victoria didn't know what to say. Patricia continued. I have a grandson. He's 4. He was born with spina bifida, uses a wheelchair. And I watch my daughter struggle to find places that accommodate him. Restaurants with steps, playgrounds he can't access, stores with aisles too narrow. It breaks my heart. But until today, until that little girl showed us her drawings and talked about building castles for everyone, I didn't connect my grandson's struggles to your vision for this company. Patricia, let me finish. You're right. We've been treating accessibility as a legal obligation instead of a moral imperative. We've been so focused on quarterly earnings that we forgot companies are made up of people. And people deserve dignity. Your proposal isn't radical. It's basic human decency. And the fact that we almost fired you for it is shameful. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you for saying that. I'm voting to keep you as CEO tomorrow, and I'm going to convince the other board members to do the same. Not because I feel sorry for you, but because you're the right person to lead this company. You see things the rest of us miss. You care about things the rest of us ignore. That's not a weakness, that's leadership. Patricia stood to leave, then paused. Your father loves you. He's just terrible at showing it. He sees your disability as something to overcome instead of something that informs your perspective. Help him understand. He'll come around. After Patricia left, Victoria sat in the quiet conference room feeling the weight of the day finally catch up with her. She was exhausted, terrified, and more alive than she'd felt in years. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. Daniel, Emma wants to know if you're coming over for dinner. I told her you're probably too busy, but she's insisting I ask. Victoria looked at her presentation at the empty conference room, at the choice between working alone and being with people who actually wanted her company. Victoria, what time should I be there? Daniel, 6:30. Emma's making spaghetti, by which I mean she's dumping an entire box of pasta in boiling water and calling it cooking. Victoria, sounds perfect. I'll bring dessert. Daniel, you don't have to do that. Victoria, I want to. See you soon. Victoria packed up her things, saved her presentation, and headed to the corporate apartment. When she arrived, she could hear laughter from inside. She knocked, and Emma threw open the door. Victoria, you came? Daddy said you might be too busy, but I knew you'd come because friends always show up for each other. The apartment smelled like garlic and tomato sauce. Daniel stood in the kitchen looking domestic and comfortable in a way that made Victoria's chest ache. I hope you're hungry, he said. Emma made enough pasta to feed an army. I used the whole box like you taught me, Emma announced proudly. They ate dinner at the small kitchen table, Emma chattering about her first day of school, Daniel teasing his daughter about her new friend, who apparently had very strong opinions about dinosaurs. Victoria felt herself relaxing, the tension of the board meeting melting away. This was what she'd been missing. Not fancy dinners with investors. Not networking events. Just people who cared about each other sharing a meal. After dinner, Emma insisted they all watch a movie. They piled onto the couch, Emma in the middle, her head on Victoria's lap, while Daniel stretched out on the other side. Halfway through the movie, Emma fell asleep. She's had a big day, Daniel whispered. So have we. How are you feeling about tomorrow? Terrified. Hopeful. Ready. Daniel looked at her across his sleeping daughter. Whatever happens, you did the right thing. You stood up for what you believe in. That matters more than any board vote. Does it? Because if I lose tomorrow, all my standing up accomplished was getting me fired. You showed Emma that you fight for what's right, even when it's hard. You showed me that courage looks like showing up when everything's on the line. And you showed yourself that you're stronger than you thought. Those things matter. Victoria looked at this man she'd known for barely 48 hours, this man who'd somehow become essential to her in that impossibly short time. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. Thank you for giving Emma someone else to believe in, for showing her that princesses fight back. They sat in comfortable silence, Emma sleeping between them, and Victoria felt something shift in her chest, something that felt like hope, like home, like maybe regardless of what happened tomorrow, she'd already won something more valuable than any company. She'd found her way back to being human. Victoria woke up on the couch at 5 a.m., her neck stiff and her heart racing. Emma had been carried to bed at some point, and someone had draped a blanket over Victoria. Daniel. It had to be Daniel. She sat up slowly, her wheelchair positioned beside the couch within easy reach. Daniel had thought of that too. The small kindness made her throat tight. Today was the day. The board vote. Everything she'd built hanging in the balance. She transferred to her wheelchair and rolled quietly to the kitchen, not wanting to wake Daniel or Emma. But Daniel was already there, coffee brewing, staring out the window at the Chicago skyline, just beginning to lighten with dawn. "Couldn't sleep either?" Victoria asked. Daniel turned, managing a tired smile. "Emma had nightmares. Missing her mom. Took me 2 hours to get her back to sleep. I'm sorry." "Don't be. It's getting better. Slowly. Some nights she sleeps through. Some nights she doesn't. We take it one day at a time." He poured 2 cups of coffee, handing one to Victoria. "Today's your day. You ready?" "No. Yes. I don't know." Victoria wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "What if I lose? Then you lose, but you lose knowing you fought for something that mattered." "Easy for you to say. It's not your company on the line." Daniel sat down across from her. "You're right, it's not. But I lost my wife 8 months ago. Lost the future we'd planned, the life we'd built, everything I thought was certain. And you know what I learned? What? That losing things doesn't kill you. It changes you, breaks you open, forces you to rebuild. But it doesn't kill you. And sometimes what you build after the loss is stronger than what you had before." Victoria thought about that, about her mother's death, about the empire she'd built from grief, about who she'd become in the process. "I don't want to lose my company, but I think I'm more afraid of losing myself by compromising to keep it." "Then you already know what you have to do." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun rose over Chicago, 2 broken people finding strength in each other's company. Emma appeared in the doorway at 6:30, rubbing her eyes. "Is it today? The big meeting?" "It is, baby," Daniel confirmed. Emma climbed into Victoria's lap without asking, wrapping her small arms around Victoria's neck. "I dreamed about Mommy last night. She told me to tell you something." Victoria's heart clenched. "What did she say?" "She said princesses don't need permission to be brave. They just are." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "Emma, baby. I know it was just a dream, Daddy, but it felt real. Like Mommy was really there." Emma looked at Victoria with absolute seriousness. "You're going to win today. I can feel it." Victoria held this child who'd lost so much and still believed in happy endings. "I hope you're right." "I am. And when you win, we're making cookies. The biggest, most celebrated cookies ever." Victoria arrived at the office at 8:30, 90 minutes before the board meeting. Her assistant Jennifer was already there, looking worried. "Ms. Sterling, your father's been calling. He wants to meet before the board convenes. Tell him I'm preparing my presentation. He said it's urgent. Personal, not business." Victoria hesitated. "Fine. My office. 10 minutes." She used those 10 minutes to center herself, to remember why she was fighting. Not for her father's approval. Not for the board's validation. For Emma and Daniel, and everyone who'd ever been excluded by spaces that weren't built for them. Her father knocked exactly 10 minutes later. He entered her office looking older than she remembered, the lines around his eyes, deeper, his shoulders slightly stooped. "Victoria?" "Dad." They stared at each other across the desk, years of complicated history between them. James Sterling sat down without being invited. "I need to tell you something before that meeting. If you're here to convince me to back down." "I'm here to apologize." Victoria's words died in her throat. Her father never apologized. Not when he'd thrown out her mother's belongings. Not when he'd called her disability a liability. Never. "When your mother died," James continued, his voice rough, "I didn't know how to handle it. Didn't know how to be a single father to a 12-year-old girl who was grieving. Didn't know how to grieve myself. So I did what I knew how to do. I worked. I built. I made money because money was something I understood." Emotions, pain, loss. Those were foreign languages I couldn't speak. Victoria sat frozen, afraid to move, afraid he'd stop talking. And then you got sick. Transverse myelitis, the doctor said. 1 week you were fine, the next you couldn't walk. Another thing I couldn't fix. Another way I'd failed to protect you. So I threw money at the problem. Best doctors, best equipment, best physical therapy. Anything but actually dealing with the fact that my daughter's life had changed, and I couldn't change it back. Dad, let me finish. Please. James took a shaky breath. You were so strong. Stronger than me. You adapted, pushed forward, built an incredible life. And instead of being proud, I was threatened. Because you'd done it without me. Without my help. You'd taken your disability, the thing I saw as a tragedy, and turned it into perspective, into strength, into vision. And I couldn't handle that my daughter had surpassed me. Tears were streaming down Victoria's face now. You never said any of this. I know. I should have. Should have told you I was proud, instead of pushing you to do more. Be more. Prove more. Should have told you that you remind me so much of your mother, it hurts to look at you sometimes. She had that same stubborn courage, that same refusal to accept the world as it is, instead of fighting for what it should be. She would have supported the accessibility budget. She would have increased it. Your mother believed in people in dignity and doing right even when it cost you. I've spent 16 years trying to erase her influence to make you hard and practical and profit-driven. But you're her daughter. You always were. James stood up, walking to the window. I'm voting to keep you as CEO today. Victoria couldn't breathe. What? I'm voting to keep you, and I'm backing your $6 million accessibility budget. Patricia called me last night, told me about her grandson, made me realize I've been so focused on protecting you from failure that I've been preventing you from succeeding on your own terms. I don't understand. Yesterday you said, yesterday I was scared. Scared you were making a mistake that would destroy everything you'd built. Scared I'd lose another person I loved to something I couldn't control. But I spent last night thinking about your mother, about what she'd say if she could see us now. And I realized the real mistake would be trying to make you into something you're not. Victoria wheeled around her desk, stopping in front of her father. Why are you telling me this now? Because whether you win or lose today, you deserve to know that I'm proud of you. That I've always been proud of you. I've just been too damaged and scared to say it. For the first time in 16 years, James Sterling hugged his daughter. Really hugged her, not the awkward shoulder pat he usually managed, but a real embrace that spoke of grief and love and years of words left unsaid. I love you, Victoria. I'm sorry it took me this long to show it. Victoria clung to her father, crying into his expensive suit jacket. I love you too, Dad. They stayed like that until Jennifer knocked softly. Ms. Sterling. The board is assembling. Victoria pulled back, wiping her eyes. How do I look? James smiled, a real smile she hadn't seen since her mother was alive. Like your mother. Strong. Fierce. Ready to change the world. The boardroom was full when Victoria entered, Daniel beside her. Emma had insisted on coming too, wearing her best dress and carrying her coloring book like armor. The board members were already seated. Patricia Morrison gave Victoria an encouraging nod. Robert Chang smiled. Marcus Chen looked like he'd swallowed something bitter. Let's begin, James Sterling said, taking his seat at the head of the table. Victoria, you have the floor. Victoria pulled up her presentation, her hands steady despite her racing heart. Thank you for reconsidering yesterday's vote. I know you've all reviewed the data Mr. Rodriguez provided. Today, I want to show you not just why accessibility investment makes financial sense, but why it's the right thing for Sterling Technologies to do. For the next hour, Victoria presented everything she and Daniel had built. The financial projections showing ROI within 3 years. The market analysis proving the disability community's spending power. The competitive analysis showing how companies that invested in accessibility outperformed those that didn't. But she also showed them something else. She showed them Emma's drawings of accessible castles. She showed them photos of Daniel's brother navigating inaccessible spaces. She showed them her own experiences. The doors she couldn't open, the bathrooms. She couldn't use the buildings that made her feel like an afterthought. "I'm not asking you to spend $6 million out of charity," Victoria said, her voice strong and clear. "I'm asking you to invest in building a headquarters that represents our values. We say we want to attract the best talent. But how can we attract talent when our building excludes qualified candidates who use wheelchairs? We say we care about innovation. But how can we innovate when we're not designing for diverse perspectives and experiences?" She paused, meeting each board member's eyes. Sterling Technologies has always been about pushing boundaries, about refusing to accept limitations. I built this company on the belief that technology should serve everyone, not just the able-bodied majority. Our building should reflect that belief. Marcus Chen spoke up. "Ms. Sterling, your presentation is compelling, but I'm concerned about setting a precedent. If we approve $6 million for accessibility in Chicago, what's to stop other departments from requesting similar budgets for their pet projects?" Accessibility isn't a pet project, Marcus. It's infrastructure. Would you call our IT security budget a pet project? Our HVAC system, our fire suppression equipment. We invest in infrastructure that keeps our building functional and our employees safe. Accessibility is the same thing. It's not the same, and you know it. Fire suppression is legally required. We're already meeting legal accessibility requirements. Emma stood up suddenly. "Can I say something?" Marcus Chen looked annoyed. "This is a board meeting, not show and tell." "Let her speak," Patricia Morrison said firmly. Emma walked to the front of the room with her coloring book. "Mr. Chen, do you have kids?" Marcus blinked, caught off guard. "I have 2 daughters. And if one of your daughters couldn't walk, would you want her to use the back entrance, like she doesn't matter? Or would you want her to walk through the front door like everyone else?" The room went silent. Marcus Chen's face flushed. Emma continued, her small voice carrying weight. "My mommy is dead. She can't be here to tell you this is wrong. But if she was here, she'd say that making people feel small and unimportant is the meanest thing you can do. And she'd say that people who have lots of money have the most responsibility to be kind because they have the power to change things." She set her coloring book on the table in front of Marcus Chen. "Look at my castles. Everyone gets to come in the front door. Everyone gets to feel special. That's what Victoria wants to build. And if you say no, you're not saving money. You're just being mean." Marcus Chen stared at the drawings, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at Victoria. "Where did you find this kid?" "She found me," Victoria said. "In an airport when I was sitting alone, convinced that success meant isolation. She and her father reminded me that building things that matter is more important than building things that are cheap." Robert Chang leaned forward. "Victoria, I've reviewed all the data. Your financial projections are sound. Your market analysis is thorough. And frankly, the companies you're competing against are already investing in accessibility. If we don't match or exceed their standards, we're going to lose talent to competitors who value inclusion." "That's my assessment as well," Patricia Morrison added. "I'm prepared to vote in favor of the $6 million accessibility budget and to reinstate Victoria as CEO." "As am I," Robert said. One by one, the board members voiced their support. Even Marcus Chen, after a long pause, said, "I still think it's excessive, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. I vote yes." Only 2 board members voted no. The motion passed 7-2. Victoria felt her knees weaken with relief. She'd won. Not just the vote, but something bigger. She'd fought for her vision and survived. James Sterling stood up. "There's one more matter to address. The board has been operating under the assumption that Victoria's age and disability make her unfit to lead long-term. I'd like to formally propose that we eliminate any succession planning that doesn't include Victoria's explicit approval. She built this company. She should lead it as long as she chooses." I second that motion, Patricia said immediately. The vote was unanimous. Emma launched herself at Victoria, nearly knocking her out of her wheelchair. You won. You won. The princess saved her kingdom. Daniel was grinning, tears in his eyes. You did it. We did it, Victoria corrected. None of this would have happened without you. The board members filed out, congratulating Victoria, shaking Daniel's hand. James Sterling was the last to leave. He stopped beside Victoria's chair. Your mother would be so proud of you today. Thank you, Dad, for everything, for believing in me. I always believed in you. I was just too afraid to let you know. He looked at Daniel and Emma. Take care of my daughter. She's terrible at taking care of herself. We will, Emma promised. We're family now. After everyone left, Victoria, Daniel, and Emma sat in the empty boardroom, the weight of the morning finally hitting them. I can't believe that just happened, Victoria said. Believe it. You changed your company's trajectory. You changed how they think about accessibility. You changed everything. Daniel reached across the table, taking her hand. You were magnificent. I was terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. Emma tugged on both their hands. Can we make cookies now? You promised. Victoria laughed, the sound foreign and wonderful. Yes, let's make cookies. They went back to the corporate apartment, stopping to buy ingredients on the way. Emma insisted they needed celebration sprinkles and extra chocolate chips because we're extra happy. In the kitchen, flour flew everywhere. Emma dumped measuring cups with abandon while Daniel tried to maintain some semblance of order. Victoria mixed ingredients, laughing, as Emma added creative touches that definitely weren't in the recipe. Mommy always said cooking is better when you add love, Emma explained, dumping an extra handful of chocolate chips into the bowl. Your mommy was right, Victoria agreed. As the cookies baked, filling the apartment with warmth and sweetness, Victoria felt something shift inside her chest. The loneliness that had defined her for so long was gone, replaced by something she'd almost forgotten existed. Belonging. Daniel pulled the cookies from the oven, nearly burning himself. Emma immediately tried to grab one, dancing away when her father warned they were too hot. Patience, baby. But they smell so good. While they waited for the cookies to cool, Emma pulled out her coloring book. Victoria, I made you something. She showed Victoria a new drawing. It wasn't a castle this time. It was 3 people holding hands. A tall man, a little girl, and a woman in a wheelchair. Behind them was a huge building with ramps and wide doors, and people of all kinds streaming in and out. That's us, Emma explained. And that's your new building that you get to make perfect for everyone. And we're all holding hands because we're family now. Victoria's throat tightened. Emma, this is beautiful. You can keep it. Put it in your office so when mean people try to make you forget why you're building the accessible castle, you remember that it's for people like you, and people like Uncle Pablo. Uncle Pablo? Daniel smiled. My brother. He's flying to Chicago next month to see the new headquarters. He's an architect too, actually. Works mostly on the advocacy side, consulting on accessibility code compliance. When I told him about your project, he cried. Happy crying or sad crying? Emma asked. Happy crying, because someone's finally building something that treats people like him with dignity. Victoria looked at the drawing, at these 2 people who'd crashed into her life and changed everything. I want you to head the accessibility division. Both of you. Daniel as lead designer, Pablo as advocacy consultant. Build something revolutionary. Daniel stared at her. Victoria, that's a massive commitment. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. You understand this in a way my high-priced architects never will. You've lived it. That's worth more than any credential. What about my construction job I start Monday? Call them and quit. I'll triple whatever they were going to pay you. Victoria, I'm not being charitable. I'm being smart. I need the best people for this project. You're the best. Say yes. Daniel looked at Emma, who was bouncing with excitement. Daddy, can we build the accessible castle together? Yeah, baby, I think we can. Emma cheered, grabbing a now cool cookie and taking a huge bite. This is the best day ever. New school, new city. New job for Daddy, and Victoria gets to keep her kingdom. Victoria bit into her own cookie, the chocolate melting on her tongue. It was imperfect, too sweet, slightly burnt on one edge. It was perfect. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Daniel and Victoria sat on the apartment balcony, looking out at the Chicago skyline. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, Victoria admitted. For this to turn out to be too good to be true. It's not too good, it's just good. You're allowed to have good things, Victoria. Am I, because I spent so long thinking I had to choose between success and connection, that I couldn't have both? Your father made you think that, but he was wrong. The best leaders are the ones who care about people, who build things that matter. You're doing both. Victoria leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder, a gesture that felt natural and right. Thank you for showing up at that board meeting, for fighting for me when I was ready to give up. I didn't fight for you, I fought with you. There's a difference. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights flicker on as darkness fell. Victoria, can I ask you something? Anything. What happens now, with us, I mean? We've known each other for less than a week. We've been through this intense, life-changing experience together. But what happens when things calm down and real life sets in? Victoria turned to look at him. Really look at him. This man who'd lost his wife, who was rebuilding his life from grief, who'd somehow found room in his broken heart to care about a stranger in an airport. I don't know, she said honestly. I've never done this before. Never let anyone this close. Never wanted to. And now I'm terrified. Because I could lose this. Lose you and Emma. And that scares me more than losing my company ever did. Daniel took her hand. You're not going to lose us. We're not going anywhere. You don't know that. People leave. People die. Nothing's certain. You're right. Nothing's certain. Maria and I were supposed to have 50 years together. We got 7. Life doesn't come with guarantees. He squeezed her hand. But I can promise you this, I'm not walking away because things get hard or scary. I'm not your father. I'm not the people who left you behind. I'm here, and I'm choosing to stay here. Victoria felt tears slip down her cheeks. I don't know how to do relationships. I'm going to mess this up. So will I. We'll mess it up together and figure it out as we go. Is that enough? It's everything. They kissed, then soft and tentative, and full of possibility. When they pulled apart, Victoria was smiling through her tears. Emma's going to be insufferable when she finds out about this. Daniel laughed. She's been planning our wedding since the airport. She's got the venue picked out, the flowers, the cake flavors. Does she now? Chocolate with vanilla frosting and purple decorations, everything purple. Victoria's phone buzzed, a text from her father. Dad. Dinner this Sunday. Just the 2 of us. I want to tell you about your mother. Real stories, not the sanitized version I've been avoiding for 16 years. Victoria typed back. I'd like that. But can Daniel and Emma come too? They're family now. Dad. I'd like to meet them properly. Sunday at 6. I'll cook. Victoria. You're going to cook, Dad. Your mother taught me a few things. I've been too stubborn to use them. Time to change that. Victoria showed Daniel the texts. My father's cooking dinner for us on Sunday. Is that good or terrifying? Both. Definitely both. Victoria leaned against him, feeling safe and scared and hopeful all at once. Daniel, I think I'm falling in love with you. And that's completely insane because we've known each other for 5 days. 4 days, actually. But who's counting? Daniel kissed her forehead. And for what it's worth, I'm falling in love with you too. Emma told me yesterday that I smile differently when you're around, like I'm waking up after a long sleep. Are you waking up? Yeah, I think I am. For the first time since Maria died, I'm not just surviving, I'm living. And that's because of you. They stayed on the balcony until the city quieted, talking about the future, about the headquarters they'd build together, about Emma's school, about Sunday dinner with Victoria's father, planning a life that felt impossible and inevitable at the same time. When they finally went inside, Victoria transferred to the guest room bed Daniel had set up for her. But before she closed the door, Emma appeared in her pajamas. "Victoria, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." Emma climbed onto the bed beside her. "Are you going to be my new mommy?" Victoria's breath caught. "Emma, I could never replace your mom. She was special and amazing, and you should never forget her." "I won't forget her. Mommy's in my heart forever, but hearts have room for more than one person, right? I love Mommy, and I love Daddy, and I love Abuela, and I love you. They're different kinds of love, but they're all real." "That's exactly right. So can you be like a bonus mommy, the kind who helps take care of me and loves me and makes cookies and helps build accessible castles?" Victoria pulled Emma close, breathing in her little girl smell of shampoo and chocolate chips. "I would be honored to be your bonus mommy." Emma squeezed her tight. "Good, because I already told my teacher you were my family and I don't want to be a liar." "You're not a liar, sweetheart. We are family, the kind we chose." "The best kind," Emma agreed. She kissed Victoria's cheek and hopped off the bed. "Good night, bonus mommy. I love you." "I love you too, Emma." After Emma left, Victoria lay in the darkness, processing everything that had happened. 5 days ago, she'd been sitting alone in an airport, convinced that loneliness was the price of success. Now she had a family, a purpose beyond profit, and a future that looked nothing like she'd planned. It looked better. Her phone lit up with one more text, from Daniel. "Daniel, Emma just told me she has a bonus mommy now. I hope that's okay." Victoria, "More than okay, it's perfect." Daniel, "Good, because she's already planning what she's calling you at the wedding." Victoria, "We've been dating for approximately 3 hours. Maybe we should slow down on the wedding talk." Daniel, "Have you met my daughter? She doesn't do slow." Victoria, "Fair point. What's she planning to call me, Daniel?" Princess Mommy. Apparently, all bonus mommies who run kingdoms need royal titles. Victoria laughed out loud, the sound echoing in the quiet apartment. She typed back, "Victoria, I can live with that. Princess Mommy, it is." 6 months later, Victoria stood in the garden of her father's house, wearing a white dress and holding a bouquet of wildflowers Emma had insisted were more magical than regular wedding flowers. The custom crutches Daniel had designed for her were decorated with ribbons and flowers functional and beautiful at the same time. Emma stood beside her in a purple dress, holding a basket of flower petals and vibrating with barely contained excitement. "Are you nervous, Princess Mommy?" "Terrified," Victoria admitted. "Good nervous or bad nervous?" "The best nervous, the kind that means something important is happening." The music started. Victoria's father appeared, offering his arm. "Ready. Ready." They walked down the makeshift aisle together, James supporting his daughter, not because she needed help, but because this was what fathers did. Daniel stood at the end, Emma's hand in his tears, already streaming down his face. Patricia Morrison officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this occasion. We're here today because 5 days in an airport and on a plane changed 3 lives. Because a little girl refused to let a stranger sit alone. Because a man chose courage over comfort. Because a woman chose integrity over approval. Victoria looked at Daniel, at Emma, at her father sitting in the front row next to Daniel's brother Pablo, who'd designed his own wheelchair to match the wedding's purple theme. She looked at her employees who'd flown in from San Francisco, at the Sterling Technologies board members who'd become something like friends at the life she'd built from loneliness and loss. I, Victoria Sterling, take you Daniel Rodriguez to be my husband, to build accessible castles with, to make cookies with, to choose every day even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You and Emma didn't just change my life. You saved it. You reminded me that success without connection is just expensive loneliness, and I promise to never forget that again. Daniel's voice shook as he spoke his vows. I, Daniel Rodriguez, take you, Victoria Sterling, to be my wife. You showed up when I was running from grief. You gave me and Emma a purpose beyond survival. You proved that love doesn't replace what we've lost. It adds to what we have. Maria would have loved you. She would have called you family on day one just like Emma did. And I'm honored to make that official today. Emma tugged on Patricia's sleeve. Is it my turn now? Patricia smiled. It's your turn. Emma stepped forward, pulling out a piece of paper covered in crayon. I wrote my own vows. Daddy helped with the spelling. Victoria. I promise to share my crayons and my cookies and my stuffed animals. I promise to remind you to eat lunch because you forget when you're working. I promise to love you even when you're grumpy about meetings. And I promise to always, always save you a seat so you're never alone again. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Patricia pronounced them married, and Daniel kissed Victoria while Emma cheered and threw flower petals in the air. I have a bonus, Mommy, it's official. At the reception, Victoria's father gave a toast. 16 years ago I lost my wife, and I handled it terribly. I shut down, pushed my daughter away, chose work over connection. I spent those 16 years trying to make Victoria into someone she wasn't because I was too afraid to see who she actually was. Thank you, Daniel and Emma, for showing my daughter that she deserves love. And thank you, Victoria, for forgiving your old man and giving me a chance to do better. Daniel's mother-in-law, Mrs. Martinez, spoke next. My daughter Maria believed in signs. She believed the universe sent people to each other when they needed it most. I think she sent you to each other. Daniel needed someone to remind him life goes on. Emma needed someone to show her that families can grow even after loss. And Victoria needed someone to show her that success means nothing without people to share it with. You're all exactly where you're supposed to be. The Sterling Technologies Chicago headquarters opened 2 months later, a 12-story building that redefined accessible design. Wide doorways that felt spacious, not medicalized. Bathrooms on every floor designed for dignity, not just compliance. Automatic doors that welcomed everyone. Adjustable everything desks, lighting temperature controls. The grand opening made national news. Forbes ran a cover story, How Victoria Sterling is Changing Corporate America, one accessible building at a time. Other tech companies started calling, asking for consultations. Daniel and Pablo's accessibility division became Sterling Technologies' fastest-growing department. But Victoria's favorite moment came 2 weeks after the opening, when she saw a young woman in a wheelchair roll through the front entrance stop and start crying. Are you okay? Victoria asked, wheeling over. I just got hired here, and this is the first building I've ever entered that felt like it was built for me, not in spite of me. The recruiter didn't apologize about accessibility or make it weird. The bathroom actually works. The doors open without me having to prop them with my body. This is what it feels like to be considered. Victoria hugged her. Welcome to Sterling Technologies. This is what it should always feel like. That night, Victoria came home to find Daniel and Emma in the kitchen, flour everywhere, cookies in the oven. We're celebrating, Emma announced. Celebrating what? Pablo's firm just got hired to redesign 3 more corporate headquarters using our accessible design model. They asked Daddy to be lead consultant on all of them. Daniel pulled Victoria into a flowery hug. We're changing things. Actually, changing them. Victoria looked at her husband, at her stepdaughter, at the home they'd built together. Yeah, we really are. Emma tugged on Victoria's sleeve. Can I show you something? She pulled out her newest drawing. It was the 3 of them again, but this time they weren't alone. Dozens of people surrounded them, all different, all included. Above them, Emma had written in careful letters, "Family isn't about who you're born to. It's about who chooses to stay." "Where did you learn that?" Victoria asked. "Mommy told me. In a dream. She said she's proud of me for choosing you. And she said to tell Daddy she's proud of him too. And that she's not sad anymore because she knows we're happy." Daniel pulled both his girls close, and they stood there in their messy kitchen, covered in flour, surrounded by love. Victoria thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago, sitting alone in an airport, convinced that isolation was the price of success. That loneliness was inevitable, that she had to choose between her company and her humanity. She'd been so wrong. The little girl who'd asked, "Why are you alone?" had changed everything, had refused to accept Victoria's loneliness as inevitable, had dragged her into a family she didn't know she needed. "What are you thinking about?" Daniel asked. "About how a 6-year-old saved my life in an airport." "I didn't save your life," Emma protested. "I just reminded you that you were already a princess. You were just sitting in your tower instead of going on adventures." "Well, I'm on adventures now." "The best adventures," Emma agreed. "And we're going on them together. Forever and ever." Victoria pulled her family close, breathing in the smell of cookies and home and belonging. 6 months ago, she'd had everything and nothing. Now she had what actually mattered. She had people who chose to stay. And she would never sit alone again.